In our program, we have four classes, which is main.java, process.java, input.java, and display.java. In the main function, we first call the process CSV class to create a list of arrays called data to input the CSV data into the list. It's over here. And then after we have the list of arrays of data, we will ask the user if you want to use the program, and while the user keeps saying yes, the program will keep running until the user say no and stop. In the process of CSV class, the class will read every line in the CSV file except for the first line and put it in the list of array. Each array will represent each line, and it will also fill in 0 for the empty value over here, the empty value, and change the data type of each part in a CSV line into string, integers, or local date, so we can use later on. After it is done, it will print out the formatted content of the list. And down here, we have two methods that are used later on in input.java and display.java class. The flyer validate method is taking user input for the locations of the data they want to get and loop through every element in the list to check if it exists or not. The find data method is used to take in user locations input and local date input to find the metric type to use for the summary calculations. It will loop through the entire data list of arrays, and if an array has data that match the locations and dates, it will get the metric type data. In the input.java class, the class will get the user input and check if the user input is invalid or not, and keep asking until it had valid user input. It will then put the user input into variables like over like this to use for display.java class. In here, each method that you see over here represents a question to ask the user for different type of input, and it will check if the user input is valid or not. And until the user input all of them is valid, it will keep asking like this, right? The value type for value, table type for table, etc. Group type, date between. In the display.java class is a pretty long one. The class will use the user input from user to calculate summary data and display it in the way the user wants. Like for example, the date pair here is get it from over here in input.java. When first call this class, we try to create two array lists called range input and value input that represents the group of dates and the value for a group of dates. Let's see. And starting from here, it will try to create groups of a pair of dates or just a single date based on the user choice and split the group on the depend on the user choice as well. So, like for example, if a user choose one date or two dates, if the group type is none by group or by pair, and etc. And then after finishing splitting the group, the range input where each element represents each group will be filled with like the line of like add for examples. And then and after we got the range input that represents each group that we need, from here on out using the for loop to loop through the range input, we'll find the summary data for each group. And so exactly how it reflects that for each group, right, it will find how many date each group and find the data for each date in the group using the find.data method in the process CSV Java over here, using the locations and the dates for what they is looking for, and it would output a list called data for calculations back over here to be used and to calculate the summary data. Then after everything is done, we will have two lists, array lists, to be used to either display it in the tabular format or chart format. So if the user choose tabular format, the for loop will loop through each index in the range of input and value input and print that out like so. Else, if the user choose the chart format, first off, we will have 24 string that represents with 24 rows and 80 columns that represent the area of a chart. And other string, we put it in an array, and once we plot the asterisk on there, will be printed out later on. To plot the asterisk, we find the group positions of each group on the x-axis, which represents the x-coordinate of each array data. Then we find how many numbers each pipe represents and find the it's like here what this pipe represents and find the y coordinate. And then after we got the x coordinate and y coordinate, we'll use string builder, this part over here, to replace the y space with the y coordinate, that giving us which y-axis, string y-axis that we're using, and the x-coordinates giving us group positions, exactly which part, like which white space are we using on that string to replace it with an asterisk. And then after it is done, it will print out the 24 string with the asterisk on and a list of note instructions that the user can read if they they're not sure about it. And on the right side of the printed strings will be each number that represents the number range for each pipe. You can see in a second here. So now I'm gonna run the test case for this. Let's type in Vietnam. I mean, like a random input. It will isolate invalid inputs and pair. And then I type in the date. Wrong input. I type in none. And let's type in positive. No. And I choose the display method chart. As you can see here, it's displayed the display into chart, and the number here represents the what each pipe number is. Like for example, this pipe is 2, this pipe is 3, and down here we have like each group date and the value of each group date from date smallest to the level of largest date, and the user you can choose to continue or not. Let's say type yes. Now we choose same date, and let's display it in tabular format. Let's say none. Let's say vaccinated up to tabular, and it will display it in tabular. And down here is a list, is a note of instructions that since you have selected vaccinated and calculation method up to, it will print only the last date of each group because it's the accumulated values up to that date. Like so. And once we click no to program S to keep running or not, we'll stop the program. Yep. Thank you for this.